A human veteran was sent to execute the dragon, but found him crying in the dark. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The rusted airlock hissed open, revealing the scarred corridor beyond. Major Ethan Cole stepped through, his tactical armor gleaming dully in the emergency lights. The abandoned mining station hung silently in orbit around Proxima Centauri b, its halls now home only to shadows and secrets. Target confirmed on Level 8, Section 12, came the synthetic voice of his neural implant. Proceed with extreme caution. Ethan grimaced. 15 years in the Interstellar Marine Corps had taught him that extreme caution usually meant someone upstairs expected casualties. He checked his pulse rifle one final time and began his descent into the bowels of the station. The Galactic Coalition had been explicit in their orders: eliminate the Drakari commander hiding on this station. The reptilian species had waged a brutal 3-year war against humanity and its allies, culminating in the devastating attack on New Melbourne Colony. 8 million civilians dead in a single day. As the sole survivor of the squadron sent to defend the colony, Ethan had spent the last year hunting down those responsible. This mission was different, though. This wasn't just any Drakari commander. This was General Razak, the mastermind behind the New Melbourne massacre. The same creature whose tactical brilliance had nearly broken the Coalition's defenses across 3 systems. Ethan's artificial left leg whirred softly as he descended the emergency stairwell. The limb was a permanent reminder of his encounter with Drakari forces on New Melbourne. So were the nightmares that still jolted him awake most nights, drenched in sweat and reaching for a weapon. Level 8 secured, he muttered into his comm unit. Moving to target location. Copy that, Major, replied the mission controller from the Coalition vessel waiting several thousand kilometers away. Remember, we need visual confirmation of termination. The Drakari are known for their deception tactics. Ethan didn't need the reminder. He'd seen firsthand how the reptilian warriors could play dead, only to strike when you turned your back. His hand instinctively went to the scar that ran from his right temple to his jaw, another souvenir from the war. The corridor ahead was dark, emergency lighting casting everything in a crimson glow. According to intelligence, General Razak had been hiding here for months after fleeing the collapse of the Drakari offensive. Thermal scans had detected a single life form in the station's old geological research lab, a cold-blooded signature consistent with Drakari physiology. Ethan paused at the junction, checking the motion tracker on his wrist display. Nothing. Either Razak was perfectly still, or the equipment was malfunctioning in the deteriorating station. Approaching target zone, he whispered. No movement detected. The geological lab doors were sealed, but Ethan's override codes quickly dealt with that obstacle. He positioned himself to the side of the doorway, pulse rifle raised, and triggered the opening mechanism. The doors slid apart with a grinding screech that echoed through the silent station. Ethan waited 3 heartbeats, then swung into the doorway, weapons sweeping the room for targets. What he saw made him hesitate. The lab was in disarray, equipment scattered and damaged. In the far corner, illuminated by a single flickering light, was a massive form. The Drakari general was curled against the wall, wings folded tightly against his scaled back. Even at this distance, Ethan could see the once formidable creature was emaciated, his legendary golden scales now dull and flaking. But what stopped Ethan cold was the sound, a deep, rhythmic rumbling that took him a moment to identify. General Razak, the Butcher of New Melbourne, the most feared Drakari commander in the quadrant, was crying. The massive reptilian didn't even look up as Ethan entered. This wasn't the fearsome warrior whose tactical genius had outmaneuvered the best Coalition generals. This was a broken creature waiting for the end. Ethan kept his rifle trained on the Drakari as he moved closer. General Razak, he called out, voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through his system. By authority of the Galactic Coalition, I'm here to execute the sentence for your war crimes. The Drakari's massive head finally lifted. Amber eyes, pupils narrowed to slits, focused on Ethan with unexpected clarity. "Human," Razak said, his voice a low rumble that reverberated through the chamber. "You found me at last." Ethan tensed, finger hovering over the trigger. This could be another Drakari trick. Appear vulnerable, then strike when the enemy's guard lowered. He'd seen it before. "Don't move," he ordered sharply. Razak made a sound that might have been a laugh, though it held no humor. "I have nowhere to go, human. No fight left to give." The general's massive clawed hand gestured weakly at the lab around them. "This is where it ends." "Why here?" Ethan found himself asking, even as his training screamed at him to complete the mission without engagement. Of all places to hide, why an abandoned mining station? The Drakari's wings shifted slightly, causing Ethan to tighten his grip on his weapon. But Razak was merely adjusting his position, too weak to remain upright for long. "This is not a hiding place," the general said softly. "It's a tomb. My final resting place. I came here to die with the truth." "The truth?" Ethan scoffed. "The truth is you ordered the bombardment of New Melbourne. 8 million civilians dead in minutes." The Drakari's eyes flashed with something, not anger, but pain. "I gave no such order," he said, each word measured carefully. New Melbourne was not a military target. There was no strategic value in its destruction. "Then why did your ships—" "Not my ships," Razak interrupted, his massive scaled chest heaving with the effort of speech. "Not my command. I was removed from my position 3 days before the attack. My opposition to targeting civilian populations had become inconvenient to certain factions within Drakari leadership." Ethan kept his weapon steady, even as doubt began to creep in. "Convenient that you'd claim that now, with a pulse rifle pointed at your head." "I have proof," Razak said, gesturing weakly toward a data terminal in the corner of the lab. "The real reason I came to this station. This facility wasn't just mining operations. It housed a secret communication relay, one that recorded all military transmissions in this sector." Ethan's tactical training warred with his curiosity. Intelligence had never questioned Razak's role in the New Melbourne massacre. It had been accepted as fact across the coalition. "If you're lying," Ethan began. "Then nothing changes," Razak finished for him. "You kill me as planned. But if I'm telling the truth—" The Drakari's voice trailed off into another of those rumbling sobs. Against his better judgment, Ethan moved toward the terminal, keeping his weapon trained on Razak. The terminal looked dead, but when he pressed the activation sequence, it hummed to life. The screen flickered with static before displaying a command interface. "Access code Drakari 7 Echo 9, Razak said quietly. Ethan hesitated, then entered the code one-handed, still keeping his rifle aimed at the general. The screen changed, displaying a list of encrypted communication logs. "Third file from the top," Razak instructed. "The timestamp will match 3 standard days before New Melbourne." Ethan found the file and opened it. A video feed appeared, showing a council chamber filled with Drakari officials. He recognized several high-ranking military commanders from coalition intelligence briefings. In the center stood Razak, his scales once vibrant gold, his posture commanding respect. The audio was in the harsh Drakari language, but Ethan's neural implant translated automatically. "I will not authorize strikes against civilian targets." Razak's voice rang clear in the recording. "This war can be won through military engagement, not genocide." Another Drakari, bearing the insignia of the Imperial House, stepped forward. "Your concerns are noted, General Razak, but the Emperor's will is clear. Human expansion must be checked with decisive action." "Decisive action against their military," Razak countered. "Not their children." The Imperial representative's voice turned cold. "Your compassion for the humans has not gone unnoticed, General. Some question where your loyalties truly lie." The recording showed Razak drawing himself up to his full height, wings partially extending in a display of dominance. "My loyalty is to the Drakari people and our honor. There is no honor in mass murder." The council erupted in angry hisses and growls. The Imperial representative raised a clawed hand for silence. The council has voted. You are relieved of command, effective immediately. General Kavarak will oversee the next phase of operations. The recording ended there. Ethan stood frozen, processing what he'd just witnessed. Check the next file, Razak said quietly. Ethan did. This one showed a different meeting, with General Kavarak at the center, receiving orders for the bombardment of New Melbourne. The explicit purpose: to break human morale through overwhelming civilian casualties. They executed the colony to make an example, Razak said, his voice barely audible now, and then ensured I would be blamed for it. The perfect scapegoat, the disgraced general who conveniently disappeared after giving such a monstrous order. Ethan lowered his rifle slightly, mind racing. Everything he thought he knew about the war's worst atrocity was being rewritten in real time. Why didn't you come forward with this? He demanded. Why hide here alone? Razak's massive form shuddered with another sob. I tried. I sent encrypted messages to my few remaining allies. 3 days later, I received word that they had all been executed for treason. The Dracarys' amber eyes fixed on Ethan. That's when I realized the truth. The war was never about territory or resources. Certain factions within the Imperial Court wanted genocide from the beginning. They saw humans as an existential threat to Dracari dominance. And you didn't? Razak's wings shifted again, folding tighter against his body. I saw you as worthy adversaries. Perhaps eventual allies. Your species adapts quickly, creates innovative solutions to problems that would stymie our best minds for generations. That frightened many of my kind. Ethan found himself slowly lowering his weapon, though years of training screamed against it. You still haven't explained why you're here, alone, crying in the dark. The Dracarys' massive head lowered. Because I failed. Failed my oath as a warrior, failed the civilians who died, failed even my own people. This war has corrupted the Dracari spirit. We were once honorable warriors, not murderers of children. His voice broke on the last word, another rumbling sob escaping his massive chest. The coalition thinks you fled here to hide, Ethan said slowly. But that's not it, is it? You came here for the records. Razak nodded slowly. I intended to compile all the evidence, create an undeniable package of proof, and broadcast it across all channels. Let both sides see the truth. His clawed hand gestured weakly at his emaciated form. But Imperial agents found me first. Poison. Slow-acting. Designed to ensure I'd die alone in agony. Ethan's tactical mind quickly calculated the implications. If what Razak said was true, certain elements within both the Dracari Empire and possibly the coalition had conspired to prolong and escalate the war. The New Melbourne massacre had been the turning point that transformed a territorial dispute into a fight for species survival. How long? Ethan asked. Hours, perhaps, Razak replied. Enough time for you to complete your mission and return a hero. The Dracarys' eyes held Ethan's. Or enough time for the truth to finally emerge. Ethan's comm unit crackled to life. Major Cole, status report. Have you located the target? Ethan hesitated, looking at the terminal filled with evidence, then at the broken Dracari general waiting for death. Major Cole, please confirm your status. In that moment, Ethan made his decision. He lowered his rifle completely and replied, Target location reached. Investigating some unexpected data. Request radio silence for 30 minutes. There was a pause before the controller responded. Understood, Major. 30 minutes granted. Report back with confirmation of termination. Ethan turned to Razak, who was watching him with a mixture of confusion and the first flicker of hope. You have 30 minutes to show me everything, Ethan said firmly. Every piece of evidence you've gathered. If I believe you, and that's a big if, we'll figure out the next step. For the first time, Razak straightened slightly, his massive wings unfurling partway in what Ethan recognized as a gesture of respect among Dracari warriors. There's more, the general said, his voice stronger now. Much more. Evidence that members of your Coalition Security Council knew the truth about New Melbourne, but buried it to unify humanity against a common enemy. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "Show me everything," he repeated. For the next 20 minutes, Razak guided Ethan through file after file of encrypted communications, battle orders, and classified intelligence. A pattern emerged clearly, a conspiracy spanning both sides of the conflict, orchestrated by those who stood to profit from prolonged warfare. The Drakari-human war was never meant to be won, Razak explained, his breathing becoming more labored as the poison progressed. Only sustained. The weapons manufacturers, the resource cartels, they've made fortunes while millions died. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. How many friends had he lost? How many nightmares had he endured? All for a lie crafted by those who would never see the front lines. "Major Cole, your 30 minutes are nearly up," came the voice over his comm. "Do you require assistance?" Ethan glanced at Razak, whose eyes were now barely open, the poison taking its toll. The Drakari gave a small nod. "No assistance required," Ethan replied. "Situation under control." He moved to the terminal and began downloading the files to his neural implant secure storage. The system warned of the massive data volume, but Ethan overrode the safety protocols. This truth needed to survive, even if he didn't. "What will you do?" Razak asked weakly. Ethan turned to the dying general. "First, I'm going to get this information out, all of it. Then I'm going to find the people responsible on both sides. They'll try to stop you, call you a traitor, say you've been compromised." "Probably," Ethan agreed. "But I've been fighting this war for too long to let the real enemies escape justice." Razak's massive chest heaved with the effort of breathing. "In another life, human, we might have been allies." "My name is Ethan," he said, surprising himself. "Major Ethan Cole." The Drakari's eyes flickered with recognition. "The survivor of Firebase Sierra. Your tactical retreat saved your remaining forces." It was impressive. Ethan almost smiled. "High praise, coming from you." His comm unit buzzed again. "Major Cole, we're detecting unusual data transmissions from your location." Explained immediately. They were monitoring his downloads. Of course they were. Ethan made another split-second decision. "Control, I've discovered critical intelligence. Request immediate extraction for myself and one informant." There was a long pause. "Informant? Your mission parameters were elimination, not extraction." "Parameters have changed," Ethan replied firmly. "The target has provided evidence of Major Cole." The controller cut him off, voice suddenly cold. "Your neural patterns indicate elevated stress levels. We believe you may be compromised. Stand down and await the backup team." They were sending someone to clean up, both Razak and himself now. Ethan looked at the dying general, who nodded in understanding. "They never intended for the truth to emerge," Razak said quietly. Ethan quickly assessed his options. The station had escape pods, but they'd be tracked instantly. The download was only at 60%. He needed more time. "How much longer can you hold on?" he asked Razak. The Drakari's amber eyes focused with effort. "Not long. The poison has reached my primary organs." Ethan made his decision. "I need to barricade this section and buy us some time. Can you help me with the station's security systems?" Despite his condition, a spark of the legendary tactical genius flickered in Razak's eyes. "Access panel, by the secondary door. Code sequence Talern 57. Ethan moved quickly to the panel, entering the code. A schematic of the station appeared, showing all security checkpoints and environmental controls. "They'll send a team through the main access shaft," Razak said, his tactical mind still sharp despite his failing body. "Lock down sections 5 through 7. Redirect emergency power to create a barrier." Ethan's fingers flew over the controls, implementing the general strategy. Warning lights flashed throughout the lab as bulkheads sealed and power rerouted. "Major Cole, what's happening?" demanded the controller. "Our sensors indicate multiple security protocols being activated." "Must be a station malfunction," Ethan replied, keeping his voice casual. "Nothing to worry about. We're sending the team in now. Maintain your position." Ethan muted his comm and turned back to Razak. "That bought us maybe 15 minutes. The download needs at least 10 more. The Drakari general was struggling to stay conscious now, his once powerful body failing rapidly. In the equipment locker, he managed to say, "Medical supplies. Stims." Ethan found the locker and searched through it, locating a medical kit. Inside were several injection pins labeled in Drakari script. The blue one, Razak instructed. "Combat stimulant. Dangerous for my condition, but will keep me conscious long enough." Ethan hesitated. "It could speed up the poison." "I'm already dead, Major Cole," Razak said with grim humor. "The only question is whether my death serves a purpose." Ethan approached the general with the injection pen. Razak turned his massive neck, exposing a spot between two scales. "Here." Directly into the bloodstream. Ethan pressed the injector against the indicated spot and triggered the mechanism. The effect was almost immediate. Razak's eyes widened, his breathing steadied, and he managed to straighten slightly. "Better," the general said, though pain still edged his voice. "Now, we prepare for their arrival." For the next few minutes, Ethan and Razak, former enemies now united by a common threat, worked together to secure their position. The download continued in the background, now at 80%. "They'll come through there." Razak pointed to the maintenance tunnel entrance. "Standard Coalition breach protocol." Ethan nodded, impressed despite himself. The Drakari's knowledge of Coalition tactics was extensive. "How do you know our protocols so well?" A flicker of the old warrior showed in Razak's eyes. "How do you think I survived so long against your forces?" A distant explosion shook the station. The cleanup team had arrived and was forcing their way through the barricades. "Download at 90%, Ethan reported, checking the terminal. Razak's momentary strength from the stimulant was already fading. "Not enough time," he said grimly. "They'll be here before it completes." "Then we fight," Ethan said simply, checking his pulse rifle. The Drakari general looked at him with something like respect. "You would die for the truth?" "I've spent years fighting for a lie," Ethan replied. "Dying for the truth seems like an improvement." Another explosion, closer this time. The cleanup team was making progress. Razak struggled to his feet, towering over Ethan despite his weakened state. "Then let us make our last stand together, Major Cole. Human and Drakari, as it should have been from the beginning." Ethan nodded, moving into position beside the alien general he had been sent to kill. The download reached 95% as the sounds of the approaching team grew louder. "Any regrets?" Ethan asked, surprising himself with the question. Razak considered for a moment, his massive scaled chest rising and falling with labored breaths. "Only that I did not speak out sooner. That I followed orders for too long before questioning their morality." The general's amber eyes fixed on Ethan. "And you, human?" Ethan thought of New Melbourne, of the comrades he'd lost, of the nightmares that haunted him. "Only that it took finding an enemy crying in the dark for me to see the truth." The download completed with a soft chime from the terminal. Ethan quickly secured the data and prepared for what would likely be his final battle. The maintenance tunnel hatch began to glow red as cutting tools worked on the other side. Razak and Ethan positioned themselves for maximum tactical advantage. The human veteran and the Drakari general united against a common enemy, the architects of a war that had consumed millions of lives. As the hatch began to give way, Razak spoke one last time, his voice regaining some of its legendary commanding presence. "Whatever happens next, Major Cole, know this. Today we fight not as human and Drakari, but as warriors with honor." The maintenance tunnel hatch exploded inward, sending shrapnel flying across the lab. Ethan ducked behind an overturned research table, while Razak's massive wing curled protectively around his own body. Through the smoke stepped 4 figures in matte black tactical armor, Coalition Special Operations, Phantom Division. The elite unit answered directly to the Security Council. Their presence confirmed everything Razak had revealed. "Major Cole," called the lead operative, his voice distorted through his helmet speaker. "Stand down. We're here to extract you." Ethan remained in cover, pulse rifle ready. "And the Drakari general?" A moment of silence followed. Our orders are to neutralize the target and secure any compromised intelligence. Just as Razak had predicted, they weren't here to complete Ethan's mission. They were here to erase any evidence of the conspiracy. That's going to be a problem, Ethan replied, his finger hovering near the trigger. The general and I have come to an understanding. The lead operative took another step forward. Major, you've been exposed to Drakari pheromones. They're known to affect human judgment. Come with us, and we'll get you proper medical attention. Ethan almost laughed. The cover story was already prepared. He'd been compromised, his mind influenced by alien biology. Anything he said about the conspiracy would be dismissed as the ravings of a manipulated soldier. I don't think so, Ethan said, then nodded slightly to Razak. The Drakari general, summoning his remaining strength, activated a control on his wrist device. Immediately, the lab's emergency containment protocol engaged. Blast shields dropped over the entrance, trapping the Phantom team inside with them. Cole, what are you doing? Demanded the lead operative, raising his weapon. Buying time, Ethan answered and fired first. The lab erupted in chaos. Pulse weapons discharged, filling the air with ionized particles and the smell of ozone. Despite his weakened state, Razak proved why he had been the most feared Drakari commander in the quadrant. His tactical positioning was flawless, using the lab's architecture to force the operatives into predictable movements. Ethan and Razak moved in perfect synchronization, as though they had fought together for years rather than minutes. When one advanced, the other provided covering fire. When one reloaded, the other intensified their attack. But the Phantom team wasn't easily overcome. These were the Coalition's finest, enhanced soldiers with the best training and equipment. One of them managed to flank Ethan, catching him with a glancing shot to the shoulder. Ethan grunted in pain as his armor absorbed most of the impact, but still left his arm partially numb. He rolled behind a console, returning fire as he moved. Major Cole, the operative called out, think about what you're doing. Protecting a war criminal? The butcher of New Melbourne? That's the thing, Ethan shouted back. He didn't do it. And I'm betting you already knew that. The momentary hesitation in the operatives' movements told Ethan everything. They knew. At least some of them knew they were fighting to protect a lie. Razak suddenly staggered, the combat stimulant wearing off as the poison reasserted its grip. The massive Drakari fell to one knee, his breathing labored. 3 of the operatives immediately concentrated their fire on him. No, Ethan shouted, breaking cover to move to Razak's position. He managed to drag the general behind a reinforced column just as energy pulses impacted where they had been standing. The evidence, Razak gasped, his scales now ashen gray. You must ensure it reaches both our peoples. Ethan checked the secure data transfer. The files were intact, but getting them out of the station with a Phantom team hunting them would be nearly impossible. There's an emergency beacon in my armor, Razak continued, each word clearly causing pain. Drakari frequency. My last loyal commander. He will come. We don't have time to wait for rescue, Ethan said, firing around the column to keep the operatives at bay. Razak's massive clawed hand gripped Ethan's arm with surprising strength. Not rescue. Witness. Someone who will believe you. Who can take the truth back to my people. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. He located the beacon control in a compartment of Razak's battle-scarred armor and activated it. A soft pulse of blue light confirmed the signal was transmitting. How long? Ethan asked. If Commander Lyrax is in the sector, minutes, Razak replied. If not, he didn't need to finish the thought. If Razak's loyal commander wasn't nearby, they wouldn't survive long enough for any other help to arrive. The Phantom team was regrouping, coordinating their attack with hand signals Ethan recognized from his own special operations training. They were preparing to rush their position from multiple angles. One last stand, General? Ethan asked, checking his rifle's charge. Razak's amber eyes flickered with warrior pride. Just like the Battle of Arcturus Prime. You remember? Ethan nodded. The Coalition forces had been pinned down for 3 days on Arcturus Prime, surrounded by Drakari battalions. Against all odds, they had held their position until reinforcements arrived. Except this time, Ethan said with grim humor, "I'm the Drakari." Razak made a rumbling sound that might have been a laugh. "And I am the stubborn human who refuses to die when expected." The Phantom team made their move, converging on their position from 3 directions simultaneously. Ethan and Razak fired in coordinated defense, dropping one operative with a well-placed shot to the leg. But the other 3 kept coming, their superior numbers and Razak's failing strength beginning to tell. A pulse blast caught Razak in the wing, tearing through the membrane and drawing a roar of pain from the general. Ethan shifted to cover him, but took another hit to his artificial leg, damaging the servos. His mobility compromised. Ethan knew they couldn't hold out much longer. The lead operative saw their advantage and pressed forward. "Last chance, Major. Surrender now, and we'll make it quick." Ethan was about to respond when the entire station shuddered violently. Warning klaxons blared as the environmental systems registered an external breach. "What the hell was that?" one of the Phantom team shouted. Razak's eyes widened with recognition. "Lyrax," he whispered. The station rocked again, and this time the source was unmistakable: weapons fire. Someone was attacking the station from outside. The lead operative immediately switched priorities. "Control, we're under attack. Unknown vessels firing on the station. Request immediate." His transmission was cut short as the lab's ceiling suddenly tore open, the metal peeling back like tissue paper. Through the breach loomed the sleek, predatory shape of a Drakari assault craft. Its forward cannons were still smoking from the precision strike that had opened the lab to space without decompressing it, a testament to incredible targeting systems and piloting skill. The Phantom team turned their weapons upward, but it was too late. The assault craft's ventral hatch opened, and 4 Drakari warriors in full battle armor dropped into the lab, their weapons already firing. Unlike Razak's emaciated form, these Drakari were in their prime, 7 feet of muscle, scale, and combat expertise. They moved with terrifying speed, engaging the Phantom operatives with ruthless efficiency. "Hold!" Razak called out in the Drakari language, his voice stronger than Ethan thought possible. The human is ally. The largest of the Drakari warriors, clearly Commander Lyrax, hesitated only momentarily before acknowledging the order. He directed his soldiers to focus solely on the Phantom team. The battle was brief and decisive. Outnumbered and outgunned, the remaining operatives were quickly subdued. The lead operative made a last desperate attempt to activate what Ethan recognized as a dead man's switch, likely connected to explosives meant to destroy all evidence. But Lyrax's reaction was faster. A single shot from the commander's weapon left the operative incapacitated. Lyrax approached Razak and Ethan, his warriors securing the Phantom team with energy restraints. The commander's scales were midnight blue with silver markings of high military rank. He dropped to one knee before Razak. "General," he said in heavily accented English, clearly for Ethan's benefit, "we received your beacon. I came as quickly as possible." Razak gestured weakly toward Ethan. "Commander Lyrax, this is Major Ethan Cole. He has discovered the truth about New Melbourne. About everything." Lyrax's reptilian eyes narrowed as he studied Ethan. A human who believes a Drakari over his own kind? Unusual. "The evidence is irrefutable," Ethan said, meeting the commander's gaze without flinching. "Both our peoples have been manipulated into this war." Razak suddenly convulsed, the poison reaching its final stages. Lyrax moved quickly to support his general, genuine concern evident in his movements. "The antitoxin," Razak gasped. "Is it?" "We brought it, General," Lyrax confirmed. "But the intelligence division said your exposure was too extensive, too prolonged." "Try," Ethan insisted. "He needs to survive to tell his side of the story. Both our governments will try to discredit me alone." Lyrax nodded to one of his warriors, who produced a medical kit and began administering treatment to Razak. The general's breathing eased slightly, but it was clear the poison had done too much damage. "The evidence," Razak said, his voice barely audible now. Show him. Ethan accessed his neural implant, projecting the most damning files into a holographic display. Lyrax watched in silence as the conspiracy unfolded before him. Drakari Imperial officials and Coalition Security Council members coordinating to escalate the conflict. The deliberate framing of Razak for the new Melbourne atrocity. The weapons manufacturers and resource cartels profiting from both sides. When the presentation ended, Lyrax stood perfectly still, his warrior discipline controlling the rage evident in his eyes. This cannot stand, he said finally. Those responsible must answer for their crimes. Both governments will deny everything, Ethan pointed out. They'll claim the evidence is fabricated. Razak, struggling to remain conscious, raised a clawed hand. That is why we need a more direct approach. Lyrax, the Spearhead Protocol. The commander's eyes widened. General, that was designed as a last resort against the humans. To use it against our own leadership is exactly what must be done, Razak insisted. The corruption has reached the highest levels. Conventional channels will fail. Ethan looked between them. What's the Spearhead Protocol? Lyrax hesitated before answering. A precision strike force, designed to operate independently if central command became compromised. Self-sufficient, with its own intelligence network and resources. Originally created to target human leadership if the war reached critical stages. How many ships? How many warriors? Ethan asked, his tactical mind already assessing possibilities. 17 vessels, Lyrax replied. Over 500 of our best warriors, all loyal to General Razak above all others. Ethan nodded slowly. Enough to make a difference, but not enough to win a war against both our governments. Not meant to win through force, Razak explained, his voice growing weaker, but through truth. The Spearhead carries our most advanced communication technology, capable of broadcasting simultaneously across all coalition and imperial frequencies. Ethan understood immediately, a way to bypass official channels and take the evidence directly to both populations. Precisely, Razak confirmed, but it will require coordination, a human and a Drakari, working together to implement. His amber eyes fixed on Ethan. You have fought longer than any warrior should need to. I would understand if you chose to end your part in this conflict. Ethan thought of New Melbourne, of the friends he'd lost, of the nightmares that still haunted him. Most of all, he thought of the millions of lives on both sides still at risk if the war continued. I didn't survive New Melbourne to walk away now, he said firmly. I'm in. Relief showed in Razak's eyes. With tremendous effort, the general removed a medallion from around his neck, an intricate gold disc inscribed with ancient Drakari symbols. My command insignia, he explained, pressing it into Ethan's hand. It will grant you authority among my loyal forces. Lyrax stiffened. General, to give a human, the old ways are ending. Commander, Razak interrupted. Perhaps they should have ended long ago. His gaze returned to Ethan. This human came to execute me, but chose truth over vengeance. There is no one more worthy. The medical officer attending Razak looked up at Lyrax and shook his head slightly. The poison had progressed too far. Razak seemed to sense his time was ending. Lyrax, you will follow Major Cole's tactical input as you would mine. Together, you will implement the Spearhead Protocol. His breathing became more labored. Promise me. Lyrax placed his clawed hand over his chest in the Drakari gesture of solemn oath. By my honor and the ancient blood of our people, I swear it will be done. Satisfied, Razak turned to Ethan one last time. Major Cole, Ethan, when this reaches both our peoples, there will be chaos. Anger. Those in power will not surrender control easily. We'll be ready, Ethan assured him. Remember this moment, Razak said, his voice fading. A human and a Drakari, choosing honor over hatred. This is how wars truly end, not with victories, but with understanding. With those words, General Razak, the feared Drakari commander, the falsely accused butcher, the warrior who chose honor over orders, closed his eyes for the final time. His massive chest rose and fell once more, then stilled. Lyrax and his warriors lowered their heads in respect. After a moment of silence, the commander looked at Ethan. "What happens now, human?" Ethan closed his hand around Razok's command insignia. "Now we finish what he started." 3 weeks later, Ethan stood on the observation deck of the Drakari flagship Sundering Talon, watching as the combined fleet assembled. Through negotiation and the strategic release of evidence, they had convinced 3 coalition battle groups and 5 Drakari hunter squadrons to join their cause. Not all had been persuaded by idealism. Some simply recognized that the architect of New Melbourne needed to be brought to justice, even if that architect wasn't who they had originally believed. Others joined because they had lost faith in leadership that sacrificed soldiers for profit and power. Commander Lyrax, now wearing the insignia of a general, approached Ethan. "The broadcast system is prepared. Once activated, every communication device in Coalition and Imperial space will receive the transmission." Ethan nodded. "And our defensive positions?" "As you suggested," Lyrax confirmed. "Half our forces concealed in the Vargas Nebula, ready to respond if either government attempts to silence the transmission through force." Working with Lyrax had been surprisingly easy. Despite their different biologies and backgrounds, they shared a warrior's pragmatism and a deep sense of honor. In another life, they might have been friends rather than enemies forced into alliance. "There will be retaliation," Ethan warned. "Both governments have too much invested in this war to let it end easily." Lyrax's scales shifted in the Drakari equivalent of a shrug. "Then we will face it together." As Razok would have wanted. Ethan moved to the communication station, where the evidence they had compiled was ready for transmission. Not just Razok's files now, but testimony from dozens of officers on both sides who had witnessed parts of the conspiracy, financial records showing the flow of profits from continued conflict, and Ethan's own first-hand account. "Are you ready?" Lyrax asked. Ethan thought of New Melbourne, of the scarred landscape and the millions dead. He thought of the human colonies and Drakari worlds still in the crosshairs of those who saw war as profitable. Most of all, he thought of Razok, the enemy general he had been sent to execute, crying alone in the dark over the perversion of his people's honor. "I've been ready since I found him," Ethan replied, and activated the transmission. 6 months later, Ethan stood before the newly formed Joint Reconciliation Council. 6 humans and 6 Drakari, tasked with building a lasting peace between their species. The chamber was crowded with representatives from both civilizations, along with media from across the galaxy. The road to this moment had been difficult. After the broadcast, civil unrest had erupted on dozens of worlds as citizens demanded accountability. Several high-ranking officials on both sides had chosen suicide over facing justice. Others had attempted to flee, only to be captured by spearhead forces or their own outraged people. Ethan and Lyrax had spent weeks dodging assassination attempts and fighting off military units still loyal to the old regimes. But with each passing day, more soldiers and civilians had joined their cause, until the tide of public opinion became unstoppable. Now, as Ethan prepared to address the council, he carried 2 items: his service record from the Coalition Marine Corps and General Razok's command insignia. "Major Cole," began the human chairperson, "the council recognizes your pivotal role in exposing the conspiracy that prolonged the Drakari-human conflict. We have reviewed your testimony and the evidence you provided. Before we proceed with formal peace negotiations, is there anything you wish to add?" Ethan looked across the chamber to where General Lyrax stood with his warriors. They exchanged a nod of mutual respect. "Only this," Ethan said, his voice carrying through the silent chamber. "When I was sent to execute General Razok, I thought I was serving justice. Instead, I found a warrior crying in the dark, mourning not just his own fate, but the corruption of everything he had fought for." Ethan held up Razok's insignia, the gold catching the light. "He gave me this in his final moments, not as a trophy of war, but as a symbol of trust between former enemies. It represents what both our species have always been capable of, if given the chance, understanding, honor, and reconciliation. He placed the insignia on the council table. The war between humans and Drakari was engineered by those who profited from our mutual destruction. But its end was engineered by warriors from both sides who chose to see each other not as monsters, but as people capable of honor. Ethan straightened to his full height, his scarred face an artificial leg testament to the cost of the conflict. I respectfully submit that any peace built between our peoples should honor General Razak's final wish, that we remember how this war truly ended, not with a victory, but with understanding. The chamber remained silent for a long moment after Ethan finished speaking. Then, one by one, the council members, human and Drakari alike, stood in respect. The gesture spread throughout the chamber until everyone was standing, a silent acknowledgement of a truth that had cost millions of lives to learn. As Ethan left the council chamber, he passed a large viewport overlooking Earth. In the distance, he could see the distinctive silhouettes of Drakari vessels, no longer weapons of war, but diplomatic ships bringing representatives to the peace talks. General Lyrax fell into step beside him. The historians will debate this day for generations, the Drakari said. Some will say humans were the heroes. Others will claim it was Drakari honor that prevailed. Ethan smiled slightly. And what will you tell them, General? Lyrax considered for a moment, his scaled features thoughtful. I will tell them that peace began when a human veteran was sent to execute a Drakari general, but found him crying in the dark. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.